Good morning, folks. I'm not 100% sure this is working again. I can see me on LinkedIn Live, so that's good. But whether or not it's come through on the very event that I'm promoting, the Devil's Advocate, well, we shall see. I'm also streaming live into the YouTube channel, so if you wanted to go there, that's okay too. So all I know is pictures and sound are coming through on two channels, and there'll be a recording later for those that don't want to sit through this right now. So let me backtrack a little bit. As you know, if you've been listening to the series of lives when they happen, and I managed to push the live button in the right time, that I use a series, only four actually, um, psychometric analysis or assessments in the work I do. One is the stress and well-being assessment to just really give you a baseline of where you are in your stress and your well-being, and whether or not there's some work you could do in there. And I'm sure there is, because most of us are living in stress. But what you do about it is important. Um, then there's the Roche Martin Emotional Capital Report for people who wish to develop their emotional intelligence, which, strangely enough, goes hand in hand with how you manage your stress too. Then I use the Clifton Strength Finder. Very proud to have been a very early adopter of the Clifton Strength Finder in August 2012. And I've been using it successfully to help teams come together to learn how you do stuff rather than who you are. It's not a personality, it's more of a how. And also the terrific suite of tools from the company called Human Synergistics, which, if you've never heard of them before, please do look them up. And there's cultural inventories and manager leadership, manager start work styles, leadership work styles, and so on. And each and every one of those uh, suite of tools from Human Synergistics is based on a clock style circumplex, 12 segments of behavior. So where does behavior come from? Well, it's the emotional state you're in. And that's very important to understand what emotional state you're in and how to shift it. Hence the emotional intelligence piece. In the 12 segments from the work styles tools from Human Synergistics, this is a 360. These assessments are, yeah, I have my self-perception, but there's a 360 to go with it. And then we have a look around the clock to find out what does it mean if you land heavily in one of these segments. Over the past recordings that we've done here, I've looked at a little bit of what they call the blue zone, how to get into the blue zone when you're working in an environment of red and green. What's red and green? Well, green is more passive behavior. This is the style of behavior where you can't really speak up. You're in an environment that doesn't allow you to share your voice, that doesn't allow you to have an input into what's being said. And you kind of passively head down, don't want to cause trouble, got to keep my job. It's a bit stressy out there. The job market's not great, so on and so forth. So I keep down below the parapet. God, I remember years ago working in an environment where a lady actually said that, I don't want to speak up. I want to keep my head down below the parapet. The manager was mortified. Feedback can be mortifying, I know. But in this case, the manager, Steve, was trying his best to open up a dialogue with the team. And the feeling that came through the team was that actually, if we do speak up, we could get shut down for it. So being able to speak up, having the trust, the base trust within your team to deliver the best is absolutely crucial to not only a performing team, but leading you towards that holy grail of being a high performing team. Many teams struggle to get there. And how do you know when you got there? Well, that's another podcast. That's another LinkedIn Live, however I utilize this information. So let's have a look at segment that's called oppositional. Now, oppositional by nature means you are in opposition. And sometimes that can be quite amusing. I don't know if you have a parent or a sibling or a spouse even, or someone who um, and we all do this. We all find a way to oppose what's coming at us. And current political climate, who wouldn't? Well, actually, there are some weirdos that do support what's going on. Uh, can't go into it, but I'm absolutely horrified by what's happening in the UK with the current Home Secretary and her wishes to leave the European Court of Human Rights. Who would do that? Uh, Only someone who has an ulterior motive. Anyway, I'm in opposition to that, as it turns out. I've just voiced it. And some things can be quite serious and you can have an oppositional view, but sometimes people can, even in a drama, that they're watching something on television with the family, you might find someone opposing what's been going on, opposing what's being said, and shouting out at the television. Maybe one of you shouts out the television, opposing your views on what's being said. In the safety of your own home, that's okay. Although sometimes, if you're a parent doing that, you are modeling a behavior that is acceptable in your child. And sometimes children adopt the patterns and behaviors of the parent just because that's how we fit in. If you do that, then I see that I can do that. And if I'm like you, then I fit here. And survival is guaranteed. Excuse me, my voice. There's some pollen in the air, and I have recently discovered that I seem to have um, a reaction to this pollen, and it makes my voice a bit croaky. Uh, yeah, so the oppositional behavior can almost be taught, but it's also a way of expressing yourself that isn't particularly positive or growth minded, but there is a place. So let's have a look. Um, the oppositional behavior really is characterized as pointing out flaws or resisting change and fundamentally being critical about what's being said. If you can put yourself into your team workspace, I wonder how many of you have recognized that there's someone around the team who will always say, yeah, yes, but what? Yes, but. The yes, but is a real negator. Yes, but. Yes, I agree with you, but well, actually, I don't, because I've just negated everything you've said. Everything before the but is that doesn't mean anything anymore. So watch out for the yes buts. If someone has a yes but, there's a bit of a criticism coming. There's what we call the devil's advocate. Some people love to play devil's advocate. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with another local coach, great guy, who um, was in a team with someone who really did play the devil's advocate. And in retrospect, he said that this chap loved to ask leaders really quite poignant, critical questions. He was clearly someone who could see the cause and effect. So if you do that, then this might happen. That cause and effect. Being able to see how the dots join up, for example, to see that actually, if you do that over here, that will have a knock-on effect to something in another part of the organization, which isn't automatically realized. So devil's advocate in that way can be useful, of course, unless you're a leader trying to implement a plan that you've worked goodness knows how many hours on to improve a strategy or take the company in a different direction. Then you can be seen quite literally as a pain in, well, let's say neck, because anyone who's really nick can be a pain in the neck. So the style can manifest itself in leaders and in entire organizations, and it can actually be uh, detrimental in several ways. So oppositional people in that oppositional style, people playing that devil's advocate, ask very tough probing questions, and it becomes a habit. or it is already a habit. And it's already a habit perhaps because uh, someone has taught you how to do that. We are creatures of habit. And if we find comfort in doing that thing, and we find safety in doing that thing because that's how we know how to do it, then we're going to keep repeating it until we get stopped. So it does become habitual. I've got some notifications here, which is rather nice. Probably, I can't see you. I dialed into your live session this morning, and unfortunately, it seems okay. Um, this is Naomi, LinkedIn live button playing tricks on me again. No, I have to admit, Naomi, that somehow I've gone live, but not through the as advertised session. We will get that one sorted out. There'll be some things to learn. Obviously, I'm on a learning curve. We're all on a learning curve. There's learning curves. There are steep learning curves, and then there seems to be the one that I'm on, which is taking things a little bit more slowly than they might do. So by next week, we will have the advert out for the topic, and we will run the live session through the pre-arranged time zone. Anyway, let me get back to oppositional time. If you're in that oppositional frame of mind and behavioral style, you can be aware that you can appear aloof and often disconnected from the teams. And the chap that I was describing earlier, who was asking very poignant but nevertheless devil's advocate type questions of the senior leaders, definitely does have that aloofness about him, which can actually put people off going to see him. Uh, and then ultimately, what you're doing is nitpicking and finding flaws in what other people have come up with. This is a very can be very detrimental to progress. Let's not mistake that being a devil's advocate is one of those things that can hinder progress. It's a little bit like some of the other styles where you avoid things. Avoidance is another one. If you avoid um, perhaps having that difficult conversation with someone, then whatever you need to address in that difficult conversation is not going to stop. So it continues to work in that same vein. And then uh, you, you stop the progress. Basically, you're procrastinating, and procrastination in any form stops things moving forward. Uh, the devil's advocate, finding flaws in others, really does uh, stop progress. But it's also done in a way, it's not a particularly nice way, to elevate your own status. So if you're there to, look at me, I know all these things. I've seen these flaws in you. I've seen these flaws in this program, in this setup, the way it works. It doesn't work properly. So look at me, I'm brilliant. I can spot these things. It's not very good in a collaborative, considerate way of working. It doesn't work. So you need to really think about how you say your opposition if you have something that's really spot on and necessary to make a difference. So, in workplace cultures can also adopt oppositional tendencies. So it's not just the person, the culture can. And cultures that do this, you'll recognize them, they have a resistance to new ideas. Uh, I, I seem to be someone who likes a new idea. And while I'm not what they call an early adopter, I'd go, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how this will play out. And then I'll follow it and maybe get second or third generation of that particular product or idea to come through. That said, there is some aspects of technology which has blown my mind because they're so incredibly useful, apart from perhaps getting me to broadcast live on a pre-arranged LinkedIn Live. That's still tricky for me. Anyway, uh, cultures that have this oppositional view also are have hard to impress attitudes because yeah, okay, that's fine. Uh, and they're also questioning decisions being made. And in that space, of course, you get people shutting down, and there's a lack of openness to criticism. So a healthy organization will allow some criticism and in fact encourage it, but also in a healthy way that if there is some criticism, there's a dialogue to figure out what's going on. My mantra in this is always really to try and find out what is the right path rather than who has the right path. And interestingly, at the moment, I'm involved in a team that's going through their own self-motivated transformational process, leading out of chaos into a structure that's really going to deliver dividends. Um, if you know the organization, that's almost a pun. Dividends for the organization, and really take them from where they are in a bit of a chaotic state into something that's smooth, running efficiently, and in that space, then um, people are happy doing what they're doing, and they are all taking part, and they are all looking across, not only in their little box and what I do, but looking across and looking at those interdependencies in a very healthy way, I might say. So much less oppositional, much more collaborational. So we've seen that constructive styles and cultures significantly outperform those organizations that have this oppositional style. People who work in that constructive place, so they're much more. I described it earlier in one of my previous lives as humanistic encouraging. So really connecting with the people and understanding how to get the best out of people, how to work with them on the talents they have. Talents come through in the Clifton Strength Finder as well. Understanding the talents you bring and what you need to do your work is vital if you're going to work in this constructive place as well. So organizations that do work in that space are 32% more adaptable to external changes. Now, let's face it, there's so many changes going on externally that inevitably it has an impact on what's going on internally. I remember years ago working within the pharmaceutical industry that it was announced that they'd made a major breakthrough. This is a few decades ago now. I'm sure things have moved on since then. That they can measure whatever it is they were measuring down to the -9 mole, 10 to the -9 millimoles of, is it micromoles? I forget. So anyway, a really small amount of the product in the bloodstream or plasma or wherever it was. And so that's an internal change, and yet it changed things externally, because as soon as it was published that they could do this, then that's where the new standard was set. So internal changes does have an effect externally, because as soon as someone in an organization can do something better than you, then that becomes the new standard, and then you have to catch up. So adaptable to external changes is vital. So get yourself into that collaborative space, that more constructive, considerate space of working. Companies that do that, who are more in that space, achieve 32% higher quality of performance. So performance isn't just about delivering a lot, but delivering it at a very high standard too. And they have a much better thing of effective teamwork, and foster a greater commitment to producing quality results. And bottom line is many more motivated, satisfied, and loyal employees. Now, you may go, oh yeah, but we've got some dead wood we need to get around. Well, that's not motivated. If you can get your organization into this constructive place, your dead wood, as it was, will be motivated. They become more satisfied. They find the purpose of going to work and therefore delivering more and being loyal. Well, yeah, there is an element of staff turnover that may be required to get some new ideas coming into organizations, but let's not duck the issue here. Recruitment is incredibly expensive. In the first year, your salary, you might as well double that for the employment of the person, for all the benefits and pension contributions and bits and pieces that goes into employing someone, and then double it again for the cost of recruiting that person. And if you had a few more loyal employees, and let's face it, people tend not to tend not to leave bad organizations, they tend to leave bad leaders. So those leaders with strong oppositional tendencies do struggle to build constructive relationships because they're always fighting, and in that they're actually hiding. They might be hiding a lack of knowledge or a skill or something. So the best place for them to be is to be oppositional and challenging everything all the time. They hinder leaders in the space, hinder the long-term success of not only their team but of themselves. Someone put a comment on one of my polls on LinkedIn the other day that they find that often they see this sort of behavior when a leader has been promoted beyond their capabilities. And how many times have you seen that? The sad thing is, and it's come through quite a few of the polls that I have been doing, where there's kind of a binary choice on behavioral styles. Everybody chooses the one that you think, yeah, that's the best thing to do. That's the nice way to be. That's the more pleasant, collaborative, wonderful, humanistic way of being. And yet, when we ask the question, how many managers have you had like that? How many leaders do you know that behave like that? The words few and far between come to mind. They come up time and time again. And I can count the number of leaders that I've experienced in my tenure as an employee on the hand, well, two fingers at the most. One definitely, one and a half maybe, but the others really, yeah, long way to go in leadership. And oppositional styles is one of those things that really gets in the way. So if you have a look at some actionable steps in the last few minutes here to reduce oppositional tendencies, we can encourage you to listen. Resist the urge to find problems. Even if in your head it's going, oh, I can see a problem here. Listen and acknowledge and value others' ideas before pointing out the flaws. Funnily enough, I did a workshop in an HR leadership team the other day. It didn't land terribly well, as it turned out. And yet the brief was to look at some of the behaviors of the team and some themes and to work on those. We had a very, very limited time. Everything was being squashed due to budget constraints. So we had very little time to go into any big deep dives. So it was decided to really pull out a couple of themes from the team that they would benefit from, and listening was one of them. They really having that connection and actively listening. I'm reminded of a meme or a picture or a slide I saw recently about, why do we have two of these and one of these? And the normal answer is to listen twice, speak once. And the deeper answer, one I'd not heard before, you may have done, is because it's twice as hard to listen as it is to speak. Another way of saying it, but it's true. If we find ourselves thinking about what's for dinner, did I let the cat out, have I locked the door, where did I park the car, all of those sorts of things while someone is talking, we can't be listening. It's just not possible. If we find ourselves flicking on the phone and looking at things that don't connect us to what's being said, we're not listening. So there, listen. And for those that don't listen and practice actively listening and connecting, feedback is always, my goodness, that's exhausting because you're not used to it. So leaders also can connect personally, making an effort to connect with the team on a personal level, and therefore making themselves become more approachable, means that they are going to be less oppositional. I think an awful lot of opposition comes from not knowing. And maybe the oppositional stance is taken up because I'm trying to find out stuff. But if you're oppositional, essentially what you do is shut other people down. And in that space, you just can't have a collaboration. You can't have considerate way of working. It doesn't work. People just don't speak up. Embracing others' ideas. So support and promote good ideas from others and give them credit where they deserve. How many leaders do you know who have presented your ideas as theirs? It's tragic. It really is tragic. That's a complete insecurity on the leader's part, and they need to step into the place of being a leader and not the owner of all the knowledge. I did know a leader who would praise the team and sell the team to the organization, but if things went wrong, he would actually take ownership. That's the opposite way. He's trying very, very hard, this guy, to really protect the team. Though that there was things in the team that needed to be sorted out, for sure. But actually, if the team got criticized, he said it was his fault. If the team did stuff well, it was the team's reward. So good behavioral style, in my view. The other thing that leaders can do in this place is praise in public, criticize in private. So when criticism is necessary, yeah, of course, it's got to be said. You've got to have those wonderful little feedback sessions, which can only be seen as a learning. But praise in public, do all that stuff, other stuff behind closed doors. For organizations, quickly, seeking out ideas, actively encouraging employees to share their ideas, even if they've been resisted in the past, or resistant in the past. Allow ideas to come from within. You actually have a huge amount of talent and resource and knowledge within your organization. And it's kind of a shame that big consultancy firms come in to deliver these programs where actually the knowledge is within. You just got to get a way of bringing it out. Organizations can do more to recognize success and celebrate individual and collective success to boost the morale and improve structures and process to align the systems and processes to promote collaboration rather than what is still decades after I first came into the working world and heard the word silo. Silos still exist, and yet most people want to get rid of them if they can. If you do that, by the way, if you happen to be listening to that and go, oh, I've got an idea, do get in touch and we can write a book and then we can go on the stage around the world and tell people how to bust the silos. It'll be a good life. We'll have a lot of fun. So there's a kind of top line on the oppositional style, what it looks like, what it's not like, and how you might do some things to get over it. If you'd like to know more on that, you can contact me. You clearly know who I am because you're on the live, but it's Martin Daubney from Inspire Coaching based in Basel. And my mantra is to help people be at their very best in the workplace every single day without burning out. We can do that in a number of ways. And the first way you might like to do that is to just drop me a line and set up a very free, informal, and informative discovery call and see what happens. Who knows? Something might happen that will change your life. So until next week, I thank you for being here. I look forward to comments in the rerun because this will be shown on LinkedIn time and time again. And it's available on the YouTube channel ad infinitum. So please do hop on, comment, get in touch, and let's see how we can move the world away from being oppositional and into being much more collaborative and wonderful workplace for everyone. Till next week.